Welcome, Drink with James, episode 157. You guys might have noticed I have a new lamp since you last saw me. Look at this thing go. This lamp is from, I think, 1967. And I don't really know the point of this, but if I'm ever feeling really ADD during the day, I can do that. I can move this around. There's kind of endless amounts of things. That'd probably annoy Brian if I left it like that. But so I have a new lamp. I haven't gotten a haircut in like 2 months because every time I have a haircut, someone else like puts a meeting on my calendar. So I think I like pulled my hair down the other day and it's like below my nose if I like pull this down. But I was upstate for the 4th, and then I did Wisconsin, LA, San Francisco, Washington, DC in a week. Big week of meetings. Always come back feeling a little like worn out, but also inspired and excited to get back in it. I'm sure y'all, like if you've been fortunate enough to travel for work or to come to New York for meetings or go to LA for meetings or whatever it might be, I feel like those weeks where you kind of get out of your routine and go out, see a bunch of people, talk about what you're doing, talk about what they're doing, always kind of get you reinvigorated and excited to get back into the office. So I'm stoked to be back here and not be leaving for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, I came back and it's, if you're on the East Coast, it's terrible. The weather is just absolutely terrible. My office is very, very hot. I actually had to get a window unit, which we can't turn on because it's too loud. So we're gonna try and do this as quickly as we can because I can see Tim and Brian slowly starting to melt. They, unlike me, do not have Negronis to cool them down. What's going on this week? So one thing is, I see everyone on the internet turning themselves into like an old person. And look, these things happen. I feel like these when Snapchat a couple months ago had the thing where you could switch genders on their filter. Everyone was posting that. And look, I mean, the stuff looks pretty realistic. It also gets pretty boring pretty quickly. I think that if as an influencer you see these trends starting to spread, the trick is to get on it early, jump in there, and then get out and forget it. Because you don't want to be the person 4 days later posting something, being like, oh, here's my photo of myself old, and everyone's like, please stop. Just send that to your WhatsApp thread. Do not put it on your Instagram. I think we're a day in, and I'm already pretty annoyed by it and over it. Also, I know there's been some news about this app being owned by Russians and the fact that they get access to your entire photo stream and scan all of those photos and run facial recognition shit on them. I would be wary. I downloaded it and saw I downloaded it because I was like, let me try this. And then I was like, wait, I have no interest in seeing what I'm going to look like old. I am faced with that reality increasingly every single day. There is no reason for me to try and speed that up. But also, as I saw the app scanning through all of my photos, deleted it because I was like, this is super shady and there's no reason an app needs to do that. So, important to have some privacy literacy and kind of understand what you're doing before you just say, I really want to filter this photo, and so I will literally give this company access to everything ever about me. This is funnily enough kind of how the Cambridge Analytica stuff happened, is that people wanted to do this fun thing and didn't realize that what the fun thing actually was a way for them to go through and get a huge amount of data on you so that they could use that data to put Donald Trump in office and systematically try and ruin all of our lives. So if you guys could just not interact with anything Russia makes for a little while until 2020, and hopefully we can decide out of the 400 people running for president who we're gonna actually put up, and hopefully 4 can help the Democrats elect that person, and then you can go use whatever Russian app you want. But for the time being, maybe we'll just cool it and chill out for a little bit. Also, if you have not logged in to your For profile in a while, you might have seen we have new profiles on there, redesigned, a bunch of new data is on there. The content search is easier to get to and use. There's also a new feature called Bulletin where you can kind of apply to be considered for brand opportunities, as well as a number of other things. I think we've had 18,000 of those answered so far. We've got testimonials out for all influencers now. We've got thousands of influencers who have already gone out and gotten testimonials. So really cool to see people kind of filling out those profiles. But if you haven't logged in a while, make sure you do. This is probably the biggest update we've had for influencers in a number of years. So get in there, make sure your Instagram account is connected, make sure you got a new profile photo with the color your hair is now. It's incredible how many times I go to an influencer's profile and their hair is just like a completely different color than it was. Not that that really matters, but it shows me that you guys haven't logged in a while. If you're changing your hair color that often, let's just go in and log into For as well and change your profile photo. Let's get that Instagram reconnected. Let's apply to get verified if you haven't done that. Let's upload your stories insights so we can have that. Let's put some new press links on there. I don't know, let's get fucking crazy. Let's get that profile updated. If you haven't logged in a while, do that. So the question is, what do I do on a product launch when I can't talk about the product until the day it launches? How do I build excitement and make it feel authentic? I think one really important is that even if something's embargoed and you can't talk about it until the day it launches, you can still use that product in the kind of weeks leading up to the activation. So you could you could take photos or create content over the week or so leading up to it and then publish all of that on the day of to say, hey, I've been using this for a few weeks. Here's a couple examples of how, to kind of actually show your audience that you have truly been using it. I think also just, again, by using that product for a few weeks beforehand, that excitement can be real and authentic. At the end of the day, posting about something a couple times or posting about it once, if you are authentically actually excited about a product, that will come across if it's one post or if it is 10. Now, I think it is easier when you do 10 posts to have it feel authentic because you're saying I love it and you're actually using it over and over again. But the most important part is actually being excited and transferring that excitement from yourself to your audience, right? The best salespeople in the world, the kind of way they get done what they do is that if they're excited about a product, they transfer that excitement to somebody else, right? They get someone else excited about it. And then all of a sudden, you're excited about a product and you don't even know why you're excited about it or how that happened, but all of a sudden you're excited about it. That is what a great salesperson can do. It is called transfer of excitement. It's not really that technical of a term, but it's super important. So again, 1 post, 10 posts, you just have to get into that mindset of being I need to exude excitement and I need to be so excited about this that it transfers, right? Think about a camp counselor, right? And anytime you had a kind of camp counselor type figure, and let's say it's 8 in the morning and there's a room full of you're in 8th grade and everyone's asleep and has a little bit of teenage angst and a lot of hormones running through them and nobody's excited about life or anything. And this kind of camp counselor comes in and is hey everyone, are we excited? And everyone's it's I can't hear you, right? And those people are kind of lame, and for me, I could never really do that. But then 2 minutes in, if they continue to drive that and be excited, all of a sudden the crowd starts getting louder. All of a sudden people are excited and they are getting into it. And sometimes it's just totally selling that and being I am just committed to this. I am going to commit myself and I'm going to be I am fucking stoked and I'm going to get you excited. That does work. And so, again, if it's launching and you're embargoed or not, like, yes, there are ways and there are best practices as far as how you post, when you post, to make sure something feels authentic. But again, the most important thing is being authentic, right? We talk about authenticity like it is this thing we're chasing. But authenticity, if you're authentic, is there, right? It's not often where it's like, I really love this product and I was so excited about it and nobody believed that, right? The problem is that you're probably not that excited about it and you don't really want to do it. Maybe you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it for the money or something, or you don't like the brief, or you're having a bad day, whatever it is. And so you're not really excited about it. And so then you can't transfer that excitement and it doesn't feel authentic, right? And so like the easiest way to solve that problem is by only doing things that you're really excited about. And only when you start working on projects that you're not really excited about, do you have to really start thinking about how can I trick people into thinking I'm excited so that this feels authentic. Look, that is potentially a reality of the business. Doesn't have to be, you could turn more down, but for most people, I think that's a reality, that there are projects that they're really excited about and projects that maybe they're a little less excited about. But I think as an industry, we should all be, like, our North Star should be that this is going to be authentic because I'm going to only work on projects that I'm authentically excited about. And if you can't convince your audience that you love something that you really, really love, then you're honestly probably not very good at your job. I don't really know what to say about that. So I'd maybe pick another career. Question is, what do I think about the new Instagram feature that's kind of there to combat bullying, where you can quietly kind of restrict certain users from commenting or things like that? So I don't think Instagram went far enough, but they have gone farther than other platforms have gone. So like, I think it is a step in the right direction. I think that I don't envy these platforms that have to deal with bullying, because it just gets wrapped up in this like free speech conversation that is really complex, right? Like, you can find someone reprehensible and you can not agree with what they say. But I think where the platforms struggle is in kind of setting standards of like what is okay and what is not. And generally what is not okay is the most vile and the most aggressive kind of comments that nobody would kind of say there's a gray area to. It takes courage, I think, to like step into that gray area. I think Instagram isn't doing that yet. They're not saying, okay, we're gonna go around and start banning people who are bullying or abusive. That's not the practice so far. Again, obviously Twitter is fucking terrible at this. Like, Twitter just straight up doesn't care, I think, about people getting bullied on their platform. Obviously, they have, this has been a problem for years and they've literally done nothing to address it. I do think Instagram cares. So these features, insofar as I understand them, help to make it so that you don't see the bullying or the comments from certain people. Doesn't take the next step of making sure that those people can't post those things. So I think hopefully that is a natural progression where we can start to get serious about, getting bullies, getting predators, getting, people using hate speech off of these platforms. But we also have to understand that that is in some ways counter to these platforms' business goals. They're not really sitting around thinking about how can we kick a lot of people off this platform and cause all of this drama. So again, is it far enough? No. Is it something? Yes. I think that bullying is also something that's hard to well, let's like step back and look at the reality here. A lot of people that get bullied on these platforms are women, and a lot of the people setting the policy and building the products are men. And I don't think a lot of men understand the reality of what it's like to have these trolls gang up on you. I had dinner with Taylor from The Atlantic recently, who had one of her tweets put into a men's right, it's like a men's right subreddit. That's, you heard me correct. There are Reddits about men's rights. And so her tweet about air conditioning being sexist, which was kind of just really a joke and a pretty funny one. That tweet got dropped into one of these forums. And I, you know, when I looked at her tweet 12 hours after she tweeted it, it had 16,000 replies, most of them being like, why don't you fucking die? You dumb bitch, why don't you bring a sweater? What's wrong with you? You're just weak. It was just like, it's crazy. Like, nobody should make a joke and then have 15,000 of the most vile messages sent to them. You know, and Taylor's really outspoken about how little Twitter specifically is doing to combat this. But I think part of the issue is that, again, a lot of this hate and vitriol is pointed towards women, and the policies are created by and the products are created by men. And I don't think there is as much care or empathy or personal experience with it. I think the lack of those people actually experiencing these things make it less of a priority. I think if the head of Instagram, the guy who runs Instagram, if every time he posted, he had 10,000 people tell him he was a piece of shit and that he should die, I think they would get really serious about bullying really quickly. But they don't. And so they don't. But I will say, again, to all my people at Instagram and Facebook who are watching, I commend you for taking a step in the right direction. It is more than most platforms have done. So question number 3 is, again, just kind of a comment on, there was a New York Times article about influencers. It says like about kind of not dismissing influencers and what my thoughts are there. So if you haven't read the article, so the technology reporter from the Times went to VidCon, had this article essentially said like, ignore influencers at your own peril. Like, this is no longer a question of like, is it a bubble? Is it a thing? It is like, this is the future. And I think he spoke to a few things that we talk about on the show a lot, that like, this is nothing new. He says like, this is not new. It's just that influencers used to be sports stars and movie stars and politicians and magazine editors, and now they aren't. Like, so the world has always been controlled by influential voices. And it just so happens now that those influential voices are building their own platforms on these social channels. And, you know, he kind of, I think, first explains just like the craziness of it. Again, he was at VidCon, so it's very young. It's a lot of TikTok people. It's a lot of YouTube people. And it's just talking about this bigger global shift. And, you know, increasingly every day I feel more and more confident about the space. It is only growing every single day. The budgets are growing. There's more influencers. There's more platforms. I think what's really exciting now is this new class of influencer that's coming up, this younger person, so much different than what we're used to in the space. TikTok is bigger than Instagram already. It's got 1.3 billion users. That's pretty crazy. Anyone watching this show probably is gonna have a really hard time building a TikTok audience. I don't think you're like doing meme dances or whatever the fuck happens on TikTok. It's a really different platform. Brands are starting to spend money there so much faster than they did with Instagram. Like Instagram, even Snapchat, like Snapchat was up and running for years and brands still weren't investing in it. And TikTok's been around for like 6 months, it feels like, and brands are already starting to spend big money. That's really interesting because I think a viable competitor to Instagram might be able to take market share away a lot faster than Instagram gained market share. The other thing is that will be interesting with Instagram specifically is that as more people start to have access to shopping, so I think in the next few months you'll see Instagram start to give a lot more people the ability to get whitelisted by brands to sell products. And as that happens, it will be interesting to see people's reaction. Like, do you want to open an app where you're just constantly getting sold shit, right? Is that what you want to do? Do you want to be looking through a stream that is essentially an e-com stream? I'm not sure, but the commercialization of any platform opens opportunities for ones that are less commercialized to come in and start to take some mind share away, because while it's great for influencers, the normal person is going to start to get what's called ad fatigue, where they just get sick of seeing advertisements and they kind of run away from those. And most people use these platforms to stay connected to their friends, and most people's friends, their career isn't on these platforms, and so they will go to the platform where it is most natural for them to just talk to their friends. And once that shift happens, you start to lose a lot of your following's attention, because again, most of your following is not built up of people whose livelihood depends on Instagram. So as much as people love it, they will leave it very, very quickly and never look back. And I think we are entering a like atmosphere that is ripe for that is ripe for someone to come in and take some of this market share away. So I think as an influencer, it's a time to think about diversifying. It's a time to think about what you want to do with your future. It's certainly, you certainly should be looking to these other platforms and figuring out how you can be effective on them and trying to move your audience over as quickly as possible. If you're not on TikTok yet, go and try and see if you can, do something there, because in 6 months, it's going to be much harder to build a following there than it is today. These platforms, one of the ways they grow is they make it really easy for people to grow in the beginning, and really easy to gain followers, so that it gets harder for you to abandon the platform. This is one of Snapchat's big mistakes, is that they made it really, really, really annoyingly, unbelievably, I don't understand why they did this, hard to grow your following. And once you grew it, you didn't even know how many fucking followers you had. So when stories came along, it was just like, well, fuck this platform. They've done nothing for me. I've never made a cent from them. And I don't even know how many followers I have. So I'm fine leaving them. So I would just say, stay vigilant. I am overwhelmingly positive about the space, but the industry is different than your career. The industry is different than Instagram or any one platform. And you have to understand that as money flows into anything, the stakes get higher. It gets harder to be effective. And there's going to be a lot more people trying to eat that pie. And it is not a time, I think, to just sit back and enjoy what's happening and not be hustling. Because once it kind of clicks over, you might find it's too late. So it's a little bit of optimism and pessimism, which is essentially my entire life, I guess. I'm an optimistic realist, right? We've seen this happen before. This is not new, right? Go back to magazines, right? I don't have the stats, but my guess would be there was at least 3 or 4 times as many magazines in circulation 20 years ago as there was today. Now, do I think magazines or certain magazines will always be there? Probably. I don't see Vogue shutting down. Could one day, if they fuck it up that badly, but they shouldn't. they should survive. GQ should survive. Vanity Fair should survive. The New Yorker should survive. Like these things shouldn't go away. But Teen Vogue, I don't know, is that still around? Maybe, maybe not. All the international editions are closing. Like influencers, it'll be the same thing, right? We're in this, all these dollars are coming into the market, so there's all these influencers and everyone can make a living. What will happen is there will be new platforms and money will go there, or new influencers and money will go there, and then there'll be like a correction. And if this industry goes to $20 billion, it's probably at 4 or 5 right now, so let's say it goes to 20 billion, it would probably then settle back in at like between 12 and 15 billion a year. So that delta will mean a lot of people will have a hard time making a living. You have to understand that like markets are predictable and they act in the same way over and over again. So if you know that and you're doing really well now, one, save your money, get a financial advisor, invest, understand that like if you're an influencer and you're killing it and you're making $500,000, congratulations, but like what happens if you make $75,000 in 3 years, right? And you have an apartment that's $8,000 a month. That's a little bit of an issue. So think about your future while things are going well. It is much better to do that than to try and fix things once they've gone to shit. My last thing I'll say before we go, I'm already late for an event, is my last thing. I think if you haven't done this, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I will often, with 4, I make a list of everything that could significantly negatively impact the business, what I call existential threats. And this isn't like a little one. This is like terrible things happening, like my worst nightmare, keep me up at night. I list those things out and then I write down what I would do to fix it, or what I could do now to avoid that even happening. And I think if you do that, you can start to plan for these things, because the things that can go wrong probably will go wrong. And if things are going awesome for you now, that is great, but most successful people, their like path to success is just full of shit going wrong and failures and terrible times the business almost closed, whatever. Make that list of everything that could ruin your business and what you would do to fix it. And that can make you feel a little bit better. You realize like, oh, there is a path out. Or you might realize like, oh no, I have what's called a single point of failure, where if this one thing happens, there's nothing I can do to fix it. And if that's the case, you need to get really, really serious about changing that. And look, we looked at the business 2 or 3 years ago and we realized 60% of our revenue was from one client. And that made me really, really uncomfortable. So I said to the team, I want to get by the end of the year, like not the end of the year, I said in the next 12 months, I want that number to be under 20%. We got that number to under 20%, and then that client dropped us completely. So if I had not done that, if I hadn't said what is my point of failure here, and what do I need to do to make sure if something changes that I'm okay, if we hadn't done that and we had just gone on business as usual, we maybe would have had to fire a bunch of people. Like, it would have been a total catastrophe. But I know that clients, no matter how much they love you, they're always kind of leaving you, right? Like, I think I saw this on Mad Men. It was like the day you close a client is the day you start losing them. That's just like client services, right? Like, that just happens. So you have to think about, like, what am I going to do without this client? What am I going to do without Instagram? Like, ask yourself that question. Like, Instagram closes today. Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan B? Do you have a way to talk to those followers still? Or are you fucked? And if you're fucked, that's okay, because Instagram isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But in a year, in 6 months, you want to be able to answer that question and say, that would be bad. I would lose a lot of money, but I wouldn't be ruined. So I don't even know if that answers the question, but I'm done answering it. So we will catch you next week. Hopefully it cools down. Cheers.